Hello, you're watching Guest for Change. My name is Michaela and I'm one of the sustainability representatives for the Guest List. Drawing on over 20 years of experience, Livia, we are very excited to learn more about your perspective into the world of fashion, branding and marketing. In terms of greenwashing, do you feel that there's sometimes perhaps businesses that have this big green brush that they plaster over their brand in order to get people to come and join them and buy from them, when perhaps that isn't the authentic shift, that is just now purely profit? Would you say that that is perhaps a bit problematic in the sense of trying to reach the same goal?
I'm conflicted on this, because I think that there is for sure greenwashing that's out there. And I'm sure there's quite a few examples publicly out there of companies that have gotten called out for it. But I think it's, I think if the intent is there, and again, this is why I talk about social media and the powerful effect that it has, because you know that the companies that are doing that, eventually they will be called out for it, And I think there's a natural inclination. Everybody is looking at their bottom line, right? So to jump on the bandwagon, but maybe not going through all of the steps that are necessary. And what I see, and this is an example I gave to you when we talked the last time, is the bigger issue for me within the whole topic of sustainability within the fashion industry and just within industries in general is a more holistic view of sustainability. And this is where the, let's say, greenwashing, maybe not in the traditional definition of the word, has come to light, of companies that have a really good intention in terms of sustainability and protecting the planet, but really focusing more on natural resources, let's say, versus the people resources. And that's where, as I said, the case study of the company, the Reformation out of LA, becomes I think it's a lesson for a lot of people, because that's greenwashing in a sense. You're doing a product, as they did, not based on leftover fabric, not producing anything, really transparent in terms of the resources that they're using. But in the meantime, their entire staff is not happy with the way that they're being treated. And it's unfortunate, because you have now a really great idea and a great company that has seen a black mark on its record, because they forgot about the sustainability of our people, of the people within their organization. And this for me is kind of the crux of where I think a lot of companies fall short. We think about saving the planet, we want to save a tree, the ocean, reduce plastic, whatever, and we forget about the people piece of it, the education that's required internally and externally, the social positioning of lifting up underserved communities, etc. Because once that happens, then we are all truly moving on the same path and lifting each other up to the same educational level in terms of what does it mean to use the resources indefinitely or in an irresponsible way that doesn't secure the future generations that, may have nothing when they're, by the time they're my age. I say my age, not your age, but, so that they have something to look forward to at that point. And this is what, for me, in terms of Lala Berlin, becomes the crux of our sustainability and our social governance, ensuring that we have an eye on the resources, but also the resources in terms of people resources, because the planet is made up of not just the natural effects and the ecological ones that we want to supersede and to support. It also, people are part of the planet. So how do we do that and engage in that kind of conversation in parallel to what we want to do from a resource standpoint?
And on your website, I actually just want to read those quotes because it's really, really beautiful. And I think it's really interesting to unpack. So here, let me have it open. So it says, I've noticed lately that we seem to withdraw and become sometimes quite literally isolated. I've thought a lot about unification and about being stronger together. So that was really interesting. And within your role as Chief Executive Officer, can you tell us how Lala Berlin strives to form a sense of community for unification within its surroundings? And maybe you can explain what this community of unification actually means to you.
Yeah, Layla made that sentence, and it actually, I think it came out of Corona, the first draft last year in March, where we were all really isolated from each other. But also it was in a sense of from a bigger perspective, in terms of from a societal perspective, that we're all in our little silos, and we think about what's important to each of us. And now we go back to the discussion in terms of sustainability and people, and it's about bringing us all together on the same page, in a small way. Internally here at the office, it's about understanding what do our employees need from us. How can I be a better CEO? How can I be a better leader? And my focus has always been people. I don't, yes, we sell clothing. Yes, that's what drives our business, but it couldn't happen without people. And really ensuring that everyone has a voice to be able to do that is quite important to us, internally and externally. So when we think about the extended Lala family, our key clients, our customers, etc., they're all part of that community that we want to stay connected to. So these are so in terms of what we do what we can on a small basis. So when I think about last year in March, and Corona had its first effects on the world, and Leyla and I were having some very feisty discussions on terms of, okay, how can we help? And quite frankly, if you're going to have a feisty discussion, it should be on something like how are we helping people versus anything else. And then we came up with this idea of the mass. We have leftover fabric. Let's just create some mass. This is before the requirement of FFP2, but and we did that, and we donated 100% of the proceeds to charities that we felt we were close to. So one of the major charities was supporting mothers who were dealing with their children in isolated situations during Corona without support. And these are the things that we try our best to kind of really give back to in the community. When Leyla first started Lala Berlin, she wanted to make sure that, again, she's an immigrant coming from Germany. So she started to work with Syrian refugees that were coming from Syria to Germany, and really trying to give them a start in life, whether it is helping us out the office, helping us sew in the atelier, whatever. And these are the things that we try to do, sometimes on an ad hoc basis, but now we're going to strategize this in a more formal way so that we are continually have these projects in play to support that wider community. So we're not just Lala Berlin, we're a great contemporary brand. We have our, influencers who like us. It's also about reaching out to other people who may not know us, and we may not even want them to know us as a fashion brand, but I would be happy if they know us as Lala Berlin, who supports, their community in a different way. I'm happy to be known for that as well.
That's so beautiful, and it speaks how you put people first by the fact that you're happy for people to know you as someone that helped rather than someone that clothed, which is really, really eye-opening, because it just takes your stance as a profitable brand, and you're able to open all these doors and be like, okay, we are not focused on profits purely, we're focused on people, like you keep reiterating. And it seems that social governance and social responsibility seem to be at the forefront of your business's values. How do you see that these qualities influence and play a role within the sustainability concept?
Well, I mean, it hand in hand. I don't think we can do one without the other. The people aspect, as I said before, and the educational aspect, whether internally or externally, driving as a driving force for everything that we do. So if our internal teams understand the importance of sustainability and what that means from a resource standpoint, if we spread that message outwardly, and or, as I said before, have the opportunity to share our best practices with other companies, this is how we can spread the message a bit more worldwide, or broader than ourselves and the four walls that we live in. So this is where that social responsibility, it becomes hugely important, because social, society, people, it's you know, it's all of these things connected. So if we have a message, because again, we're still here to make money, yeah, so all of these decisions are obviously tied still to profitability, but I think you can be profitable while doing good. And this is for me to try and create that balance along with Leyla, in terms of how do we balance both of those things, because we're not running a charitable business here. But that doesn't mean that we can't do good and contribute, and contributing is spreading the message to the wider community.
Do you think that is actually true, or is it a matter of keep persevering, pushing and collaborating? What advice would you kind of give to brands as a CEO yourself?
I don't think it's at the sacrifice of profitability. I don't believe that, you know, if you do one, let's say you run a more sustainable product, that it naturally has to be more expensive. Obviously, there are technologies and efficiencies that are still being developed, that we will have to explore as a business to make sure that, I don't know, a Lala Berlin dress doesn't today cost 500 euro and tomorrow it costs 1,000, because then we're doing a disservice to the business. But I think that there has to be a little bit of a balance. And as a business owner, for me, it is a prioritization. What can we do first, second? Again, slicing that elephant. What can we do first, second, third? And to really plan out our strategies so that we are not just making a 180 turn, that all of a sudden we have a completely different brand at a different price point that doesn't reflect the customer base that we've built for the last 20 years or so. So from a business perspective, it's okay. What are the small changes that we need to make? What are the big changes that we need to make? How do they affect the business from a profitability standpoint? And when is the right time to do it? Yeah, so it has to be considered and mindful in terms of how we do it. So if I go back to the example of working with the guest list and developing a small capsule, or working on an upcycling project, these are ways that we can start to inject this, have learnings from it. So it's almost a laboratory kind of test phase as we start to change the direction of the bigger machine.
If you're coming into university and you want to now work into a career of fashion, what kind of advice would you give perhaps students in order to direct their career in a way that they are going towards the right goal and they're not necessarily just trying to chase the trends per se? They're actually going in with the shift in mindset that we're speaking of. But what is kind of your advice to these people? Because I mean, it must be kind of a daunting aspect now, especially with everything that's going on.
To answer that question, I tell you a little bit in terms of how I came up in fashion. I started as a salesperson at the Gap. And, you know, it's literally that kind of rags to riches, like, I guess, kind of story. Salesperson at the Gap, then pace setter, then manager, then buyer, then this, and this. And one of the things that I realized in terms of the way that I started is, again, you know, when I think about fashion, because I started as a salesperson, I think about the customer first. And this is the advice I give to some people is, you know, regardless of what area of the fashion industry you go into, none of us are making clothing for the museum. It is to sell. And if you approach your job, whether you're in marketing or you're in, I don't know, wholesale sales, or you're in design, if you're approaching the job with the client and the customer in mind, that's the path to success from my perspective. I think a lot of people coming out of college don't realize how many different departments and areas are involved in putting a t-shirt into a store. So there are many different opportunities. And I would also say that to anyone coming out, if they're not sure what area they have the most passion for, work in different areas and experience the fullness of what can be had in this world of fashion, whether it's production or it's design or development, etc., because it gives you a well-rounded point of view. And that's one of the things I was happy with my career. I've worked in a lot of different areas. So to have a more holistic mindset, but always with the customer in mind, is for me a success path that has worked. Every
Fantastic.
somebody may already know, okay, I want to be the PR girl at Gucci. Then I can't help, then you go be the PR girl at Gucci. But if you want to explore all of the opportunities that there are, especially since the business is changing so rapidly, it's I think a good way is to try and experience a lot of different areas before you land on the one area that you have a passion for.
Like that, because it is like you mentioned at the very start of our interview, how you kind of need to be a sponge. You kind of need to go each aspect. Maybe you start off in a business industry and then you move to find yourself in fashion all of a sudden, and like
exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, it's actually, I really love that, because from experience, it just seeing the success of people that I perhaps aim to be, they have tried so many different things to find where they are happy with. And that doesn't mean that you're necessarily just floating around. Like, it goes back to that being a sponge, knowing that you want to put people first. Awesome. You go through each industry and you have this trend, and it follows and it grows you, and it not only grows you as a career woman, but it grows you as a person. And I can see that from you. I can see this fire burning from you. I can feel it. We're oceans apart. It really, really like, thank you though, because it really just, I think it gives a hope to a lot of people, because there's this kind of understanding that you have to go to university and study this and do this job. But when they perhaps a more general degree is a better direction to go, because you're able to open so many more doors, and it's okay not to know. It really, really is okay. So as a platform that we offer to you, is there something that you wish to say to the world as yourself, but perhaps also as Lala Berlin?
Be kind to each other. That would be my message to the world. And I think if Leyla was sitting or standing next to me, she would say the same thing. I think that that's what we miss in the world today, on the most basic level, to just be kind to each other and recognize each other as human beings. Yeah. I give you a very small example to that, because many years ago, a girl who worked for me at Victoria's Secret, she was telling me this story. She and a girlfriend, they were in the subway, and there was a homeless man with a little kitten. And her girlfriend went up to, she said, "Oh my God, what this lovely little kitten, he must be hungry." She did not even consider the homeless man that was standing there. And I think it's a story that has stuck in my head for many years, because I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that, as human beings on this planet, we have to have a little bit more kindness for each other. Yes, it's nice to save the kittens. Of course, I have a cat myself who I'm now dearly in love with, but but there is a value, and to just recognizing each other as human beings.
Beautiful, beautiful closing words. To be kind, Livia, like that is amazing, because like we've been mentioning, all the issues are important, and we all need to be directed towards the same goal. It's not a matter of which one is better than the rest, but the end of the day, we need to look after ourselves. We need to be kind to ourselves, be kind to others, and change that mind shift and build and learn from each other and grow. And that's the only way that we can reach our goal that we're all striving for. So it's really, really been lovely to talk to you. Like I said, I can feel that from you.
My pleasure. It was really an honor to be part of this. I appreciate it.
And that's a wrap. Wow, how inspiring. Through her grounded approach, Livia speaks volumes on how we as people can become better, how we as brands can grow to be better, and most importantly, how kindness prevails. For more eye-opening and thought-provoking conversations like this, subscribe to Be in the Loop to close the loop.